Hi, my name is Noah and my classmate's name is Alex.
I'm going to present to you English monarchy. I'm going to start with King Henry VIII, since he probably is the most well-known. He was born in 1491, the 28th of June. He's a mix of House of Tudor and the House of York. He's well known for killing two of his wives, divorced three of them. One died shortly after giving birth. He also created his own Bible. His Bible was the first one to ever be in English. Of his 6 wives, the only one that gave him a boy that died at 15 after succeeding his dad for 6 years.
Jean Seymour died after giving Henry his son that he had awaited for so long. Henry lost his funding but the Catholic when he created Anglicanism, and therefore had to fund his own country and sold the church's valuables and land. King Henry VII the Eighth was a terrible ruler and hurt the economy and killed multiple members of the noble classes, and that's why Arthur Tudor was so over-anticipated, and he died 1 year after being married with his wife, which Henry married a couple of years later.
At the beginning of his reign, Henry was a good king, granting favors to anyone. He changed after a terrible horseback accident where he got probably brain damage.
The different statuses in England and what they do. King and Queen. The king or queen needed to keep his or her country well fed, have a booming economy, start strategic wars against opponents. They needed to create new laws to keep order in towns and cities. The king or queen is the law and can do whatever they want to do without being jailed.
The princes and princesses, they only have to be the successor of the king, sometimes carry small parts of the army in little fights. Their job is basically to wait till their dad dies and get married to a strategic wife or husband. They are the child of a king and queen, so the only reason they could ever be taken to prison or death is if the king wishes or if they've committed treason against the king or queen.
Duke and Duchess. The Duke or Duchess need to advise the king and help wage a war on opposing countries. They were generally like a minister in Canada because he proposed laws to the king and govern smaller of the parts of the country like provinces. They have an army to help the king in case of emergency. The king can call upon them anytime. They can be arrested for crimes like murder, but probably won't be convicted because the kings mostly have close relationship with them and their importance for England to be functional.
Marquis and Marchioness. They are high-ranking earls with more responsibility. They have a small army of guards and mercenaries. They need to be available to the Duke and Duchess at all times. They can be called upon. They're above the law to a certain extent. They can be arrested for no reason. They can be arrested by anyone higher ranked than them. But other than that, they probably can get away with anything.
The Earl or Countess. They are landowners like a small town. Sir Philip was an earl in the book Q for treason. They have a few guards. Earls don't have that much power in politics. They could be arrested or charged with anything as long as they were proof.
And normal citizens or peasants, the average can be arrested without proof, can be charged with basically anything. They are the king's subjects. The king can do as he pleases with any of his citizens. They have rights, but not that many. And they don't really get a fair trial.
King Henry VII. King Henry VII was King of England and Lord of Ireland from his seizure of the crown on the 22nd of August 1485 to his death. He was the first monarch of the House Tudor. Henry's mother, Margaret Beaufort, was a descendant of the Lancastrian branch of the House of Plantagenet. On the other hand, Henry's father, Edmund Tudor, half-brother of Henry VI of England, and descendant of the West Tudors of Penmynyd, He then proceeded to die 3 months before his son Henry was born.
The question you may ask is, what did King VII do? He is known for ending the War of the Roses between the House of Lancaster and York, for founding the Tudor dynasty. How treason was punished. This is very important because we need to know the laws to be able to proceed with what the English monarchy was and why treason was invented and for what reason normal people would be accused of treason fairly frequently. During the Elizabethan era, he used to treat treason by murder and facing death. People were dissipated, there was head, they would die right there. Nowadays, you can take treason the same way. You can only go to jail. But during the era, if you would get caught guilty, you would either die or lose all of your power.
Traitors were either sentenced to be hanged, drawn, burning, and quartered. Example of things that were illegal during that time was begging, unemployment. It was illegal to live in the Great Britain without an employee. You had to obey the rules of the church and be legally part of the Church of England. It was illegal to steal anything from a fellow citizen. There would be serious punishments. The last person to ever be hanged for treason was William Bruce Mumford back in 1862. Since then, we don't know if anyone has ever been hanged or killed for treason. Basically, treason in his own words is betraying someone or something. It's basically the biggest crime of them all. It is a rare but serious crime. It's when you intentionally betray your own allegiance or band or whatever it may be.
I'm going to talk about King Henry VII of France. King Henry II of France. King Henry II of France, from March 31st, 1547 until his death, which was in 1569, he was the second son of Francis I. As a child, Henry and his elder brother spent over 4 years in captivity in Spain as hostages in exchange for their father. Henry pursued his father's political matters of art, war, and religion. He persevered in the Italian wars against the House of Habsburg and tried to suppress the Protestant Reformation, even as the Huguenot number were decreasing drastically in France during his reign.
King Philip II of Spain. King Philip II of Spain was the King of Spain, Portugal, during his time. He was King of Spain from 1556 until 1598. He was King of Portugal from 1580 until 1598. He died as King of Spain and Portugal. He was the son of Charles V, only Roman Empire, and Isabella of Portugal. He was jure auxiliaris King of England and Ireland, which meant during that time that he was king by rights of his wife.
Kings are mostly chosen by being the oldest son of the king, but if there are no king, it will be chosen by another house or a close cousin. When there is an heir, it's very hard to claim the throne. Most of the time, a crown is traditionally symbolic of the headgear or hat worn by the monarch or deity, for whom the crown traditionally represents power, legitimacy, victory, triumph, honor, and glory, as well as immortality, righteousness, and resurrection.